Think exactly like a Tesla, but the polar opposite.
Look, mechanically speaking, if you're waiting for me to dig up a whole bunch of dirt on these, you're going to be disappointed because there's really no dirt to dig.
It's maybe not as spirited as you might hope. Okay, so in theory, this should be one of the very best cars in the world, and we're about to show you the reasons why it just might be. But the problem is, it's not perfect. There's a whole bunch of things you need to be aware of before you even consider buying one of these, like what goes wrong with them. Actually, how about we start with the exterior? So chances are, unless you're watching this from Japan, the Toyota Crown is a grey import. And if some idiot backs into you in a car park or rear ends you because they've been looking at their phone rather than where they're going, getting replacement parts to fix these things can be a challenge. It's not as simple as just ducking down to your local Toyota dealership to get certain parts. A lot of this stuff has to come from Japan. Now, obviously your insurance company, they should be responsible to source these parts, and good importers can help with that. But if you do have an accident, expect some delays to get some of this in. I should mention, this isn't just exclusive to JDM imports. Plenty of locally delivered cars can experience the same thing, but it's safe to say that at Crown versus some of its more locally available competitors, there's probably longer delays here. But you know what? Aside from that, we really struggled to find any other issues when it comes to the exterior. Okay, there are a couple of reports of the black paint going funny if it's not cared for, and yes, this is a relatively new car, but when it comes to things you'd expect, like electronic gremlins or maybe wearing through consumables prematurely, not much really goes wrong, especially when you compare it to some of its European competitors. So in Japan, the Crown has become almost the go-to form of transport for everyone from government officials to company executives and CEOs. Even the police force use these. Aside from the almost Rolls-Royce rivaling and ultra-exclusive Toyota Century, the Crown is considered to be the top Toyota consumer model. And this might be why we couldn't really dig up much dirt when it comes to exterior issues, because the Crown's not really allowed to have any. Also, the whole best of Japan ideal clearly wasn't lofty enough for Toyota already, because with this generation, the goal was to surpass the world. Mercedes-Benz E-Class, BMW 5 Series, Audi A6, they were all in the firing line. And with the levels of fit and finish with this car, not to mention the amount of features and equipment you get, yeah, you can really tell. For most markets, the Lexus ES, GS and LS have represented Japan's best hopes to compete in the large executive sedan market. But in its local market, that's the Crown's job. And this has resulted in it becoming so aspirational, it has nearly become its very own brand. The fact that in the middle of the steering wheel, where you'd normally expect to find a Toyota logo, there's a Crown badge, just shows you how important this car is to Toyota. Actually, just back to the competition for a second. If you haven't seen one of these in the metal, to give you an idea of size, it's just slightly smaller than a 5 Series, an E-Class and an Audi A6. But it is substantially larger than a 3 Series, C-Class and A4. Now, obviously there are so many more details about the Crown, we just don't have time to go through them in this video. If you do need all the specifics, hit the link down below or head to ReDriven.com and check out the free Crown cheat sheet. It's basically the ultimate used Crown buyer's guide, and it's going to answer all of your questions. Okay, now as far as overall design-wise goes, what do we think? I like it, but I don't love it. I think the issue with this particular model for me is that it just feels underwheeled. I feel like if the wheels were a little bit larger, that would really help the aesthetics. Obviously, that would then impact the ride quality, probably in a negative way. But I just feel that this generation, it looks like a slightly muscular Camry. I feel like the previous generations of Crown, they were their own thing. They didn't look like a Camry at all. This one, yeah, it's good. I don't know what it is. It's just not grabbing me. But the good news with the exterior, and I know I alluded to this before, but the overall fit and finish is next level. Like the panel gaps here are just so accurate over the entire car. Think exactly like a Tesla, but the polar opposite. However, now that we're inside, there is another issue, and unfortunately it's typical for Toyota. It all has to do with the infotainment tech. See, most manufacturers offered Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in their cars from about 2015, 2016, and Toyota, let's say fashionably late to the party all the time. They started introducing this tech into their cars from 2019, but did they include it in their range-topping Crown? Nope. Now, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it was included in these from the 2020 update. They're super easy to spot. It's one large screen. If you see these two screens, no Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto. Even when it comes to fitting this technology aftermarket, it really comes down to who you ask. Even on the owners groups and forums, there are arguments between people claiming that they've fitted this technology with aftermarket gear and it works perfectly, then other owners saying that they've fitted the gear but it doesn't work at all, or it's just totally glitchy and slow and horrible. Actually, just on those owners groups and forums, a massive thank you to all of the members that helped us research this video. You guys are legends. Also, a huge thank you to Justin at Cult and Classic for lending us this crown. Mate, you are the best. Also, according to the owners, the sat-nav, yeah, unless you're watching this from Japan, forget it, chances up it's not going to work. The good news, however, is that you can change all of the language into English, so there's no having to learn Japanese or use Google Translate to change a song. Even as far as actually using the tech, the native interface is really easy to use. I do wish there were a few more buttons for the climate control because a lot of it's through the touch screen. I just don't like screens versus buttons, but overall, it's good. And as for any, let's say, inherent issues and problems and gremlins in here, a bit like the exterior. Really couldn't find any. No reports of electronic issues or weird stuff going on. This generation of Toyota in general are proving to be incredibly reliable and resilient in terms of interiors. In saying that, a few owners, or I should say potential owners, complained about the interior design. They felt that it wasn't schmancy enough for a car at this level. I have a feeling that those people have never actually sat inside because pictures don't do this interior justice. Okay, it's not at Audi levels of amazing interior design, but it is beautiful to sit in. Also, the materials used in here, this is so soft, and this leather is everywhere. It's down here, it's along here. Everything you touch just feels such high quality. Then there are cool features like the Practicality cup holders. Look at this. That is just so satisfying. And then it raises up like some sort of a award ceremony, or like the microphone coming up out of at an award ceremony. One more time. Oh, that's so cool. Also, I should mention, this is one of the lower spec cars for the 2.5 litre hybrids. There's one model lower than this and another 4 models above this. So in terms of what materials you get, this is at the lower end of the spectrum. When you go higher, the leather on the seats is super, super premium. But even these fabrics are just nice. Everything's just beautiful. This is a lower spec. It does not feel lower spec. Although there are some potential problem areas. Toyota, I don't know what you guys were thinking, but using high gloss plastics in high traffic areas, this is asking for trouble. That's going to get dirty real quick, and I'm assuming is going to scratch up very easily. On some of the higher spec sportier models, this is a carbon fiber finish, so you'd like to think it's less likely to scratch, but still that's going to be an issue. Also, there's fabric along here. Now, I know that looks great, and I know you're probably not going to touch it a lot, but I've just got a funny feeling that's going to get dirty real quick. It's a light colored fabric. On the higher spec models, this is all leather, won't be a problem, but yeah, just, I don't know, over the next 5 to 10 years, I think that's going to look a bit shit. But look, back to good news, ergonomics, these seats. I don't know who is leading Toyota and Lexus's seating department, but they're doing a fantastic job because these seats are so comfortable, right amount of supportive, but I could sit here for days on end, unbelievably comfortable, heaps of adjustability to the driving position as well. It's just a bloody lovely place to be. And then as far as using the interior for practicality, good sized glove box there. You've got power outlets just here because your phone fits perfectly in that little position there, and it covers up so you don't touch it. As I mentioned, you've got the fantastic pop-up cup holders. You've got a bisexual center console because it swings both ways, and also it has a little slidey shelf. Spot for sunglasses up here, decent sized door bins, spot to collect dust and fingernails and bits of your sleep out of your eye just there. And that's it for practicality up front. Now, as far as what equipment and features you're going to get, look, there's obviously all the expected stuff, but there are a few highlights if you get the right spec. We're talking massage seats, premium sound systems, soft closed doors, even advanced sound insulation for the ultimate in interior quietness. All of this stuff can be included. It's another Wipertech challenge. Will it wipe today's victim? Smoked oysters. Ugh, Jesus. Before we see how these wipe, remember Wipertech wiper blades are so easy to order online. They're a breeze to fit. And if you order a set via the link, you're going to get 15% off and free express shipping. Let's see if they wipe. Okay, go for it. I'll have you know, that smells as gross as it looks. It's disgusting. So So if Wipertech blades can handle that, surely they can handle anything that you're going to throw at them. Get yourself a set today. Now in the back seat, I'm exactly 28 centimeters taller than Crown Emperor of Japan, Naruhito. This is in my driving position. And yeah, this is in my top 5 for the comfiest back seats I've ever sat in. The seat comfort itself is incredible. This is so comfy, good amount of knee room. Feet are a little bit cramped and the transmission tunnel is huge, so you wouldn't want to sit in the middle back here, but what a beautiful place to be. Even in terms of the materials used, again, beautiful soft touches everywhere. And with features and practicality, you've got your own air vent, you've got map pockets here, more pockets in the doors, pull down armrest with more cup holders here. But as I mentioned, the higher up the spec sheet you go, you can get blinds, you can get all sorts of crazy stuff back here. Now, as far as practicality in the boot goes, it's interesting because in some of the reviews we read researching this, it was saying that because of the hybrid system, the boot isn't as large as you'd think. This boot is massive. I don't know how much more space you actually need back here. It's great. Even the opening apertures are good size. And in terms of safety features, it's a bit like the equipment inside. You know, this thing's designed to ferry VIPs around like your family members, so there's loads. On top of all the usual stuff that you'd expect, the Crown comes with Toyota's Safety Sense 2, which basically means a load of semi-autonomous and active systems like pre-collision detection and radar cruise control. However, it's unfortunately not all good news for the safety features, especially when it comes to driving. The complaints from a couple of Aussie owners seem to be that the lane keep assist doesn't like Aussie roads, and the speed warning, it can get a bit confused by school zone signs. Also, apparently the radar guided cruise control, it can have a little freak out if the car in front of you changes lanes, like if it's going into a turning lane, and the car can jump on its brakes. Also, a few owners complained that they felt the steering was overly light and vague, but I don't know, it's not trying to be a performance car. This thing's trying to be a big, cruisy, luxurious land yacht that's easy to use, and for me, the steering provides everything you'd expect from that. Now, something you need to be aware of is that there are 3 different engine options with multiple different mechanical configurations underneath. And it's important to know that the 2.5 litre hybrid, it's maybe not as spirited as you might hope. This 2.5 litre hybrid is basically the same engine as you'll find in a Camry. And look, it's certainly not slow at all, not at all dangerous, but just, yeah, don't go expecting to be pinned to your seat. For that, you're gonna wanna get the 3.5 litre hybrid V6 because that thing is seriously quick. We're talking 0 to 100 in under 5 seconds. It's technically faster than a Volkswagen Golf R and Kia Stinger GT of the same year. Now, while we're talking about the highlights, okay, ride quality. It's amazing. I don't know how they've made the ride quality this good. Through corners, I was expecting it to pitch and roll all over the place, but it doesn't. It stays flat and controlled. But then we've been over some seriously rough roads in this thing, and it just rides like a magic carpet. Also, it is so quiet in here. Okay, maybe not Toyota Century levels of quiet with the double glazed glass, but you can look at this whole thing, and you just don't understand what I'm saying. It's seriously quiet. And then we have the highlight, especially with the 2.5 litre hybrid, of fuel consumption. This thing's getting less than 5 litres per 100 Ks. That is, for a car this size, that is incredible. However, we know there are always question marks when it comes to hybrid technology, especially when it's an imported car. So what's the story there? Mechanically, what goes wrong with these? What can you expect? I'm sorry, I can't answer those questions because I'm not a qualified mechanic. But you know who is? It's Jim.
The 2-litre turbo in these is of the newer generation of Toyota motors, and they are more complex than ever before, which means inevitably there is more to go wrong. But so far, there's no pattern emerging here. We've seen a few coils fail, a few coolant leaks, but really, there's really not much to go wrong. Have seen a few coolant leaks from the heat exchanger, but overall, these problems are incredibly rare. However, because they're more complex and there's more to go wrong, I wouldn't neglect the servicing. I know traditionally Toyotas have been okay with a bit of neglect, but on these, because of the complexity, I would service them every 10,000 kilometres. Now, the 2.5 litre in the hybrid, they are a more simpler engine overall, and also very reliable. Few EGR complications, some high pressure fuel pump complications also, but pretty much not much else, and those problems are fairly rare too. There is less to go wrong. Things like the water pump and AC compressors, there's no drive belt for them, so you're not going to have to worry about that. And being a hybrid, make sure that you keep the hybrid fan air filter nice and clean. Also, there's no turbo on these, so that's one less thing to go wrong too. Now, the 3.5 litre V6, again, very reliable engine. They did have a few issues with oil leaks from timing covers. However, that was more of a production issue. and all of those leaks in the early models were fixed under warranty. We've also seen a few oil leaks from the sump gasket as well. Now, if they weren't fixed under warranty, typically that's actually quite an easy fix. Water pumps on these, fairly common considering, and the thermostats too. The thing with the thermostats, they get stuck open and they make the engine run cool, and that will typically log a fault code. Now, if you're doing the water pump, it's a great idea on these to do a thermostat at the same time because it's right there. It should just be part of the regular servicing. Again, with these, there's been a few high pressure fuel pump complications, but again, not very common. There have been a few people experiencing air-fuel ratio fault codes, and typically on these, that's from the purge valve. Again, not common and fairly easy to fix too. Now, the hybrid systems on these, yeah, typical Toyota, very unlikely you're going to have any issues with it. And if you do, it's all fairly simple to fix too. Now, the transmission's the eCVT, not your typical CVT. I've said this before, I think they're one of the most reliable modern transmissions ever made. And the 8-speed automatics in the non-hybrids also very unlikely to have an issue with it. Now, something some people worry about with a grey import is the availability of parts. Look, the platform here is Toyota and Lexus from front to back, and all the engines are in other Toyota and Lexus models too, so typically you're not going to have any issues getting mechanical parts. Overall, mechanically, yes, typical Toyota reliability, just brilliant.
Now, when it comes to actually buying one of these, first of all, you do have to consider the competition. For the Crown's approximate 40 to 50,000 Aussie dollars, you could find yourself behind the wheel of a lower spec, higher kilometre example of a Mercedes-Benz E-Class, BMW 5 Series, or Audi A6. However, at this budget, many will be older models. Another option, if you're happy to sacrifice, let's say, fuel efficiency for performance, is the Kia Stinger GT. Plus, at this price, you're going to be looking at extremely low kilometre, mint condition 2020 models. But no matter what car you're looking at, if you're in the market for car finance, do yourself a favour and hit the Driver link down below. Driver will do all the heavy lifting for you. They will source you the best possible finance packages from loads of different lenders. There are no hidden fees. Applying is easy and completely free. And it's going to have no impact on your credit score. But if you're convinced that the Crown is the car for you, yeah, good call. This thing is spectacular. But if you are buying a Crown already in Australia, please make sure you get a full pre-purchase inspection carried out and make sure that all of the import documents are up to scratch. And if you're the one bringing it into Australia, please make sure you go through a reputable importer because there are some dodgy operators out there. Do all of that and not only will you know you're driving potentially one of the very best cars on Australian roads, but you're going to be driving one of the best examples of it. However, there is another hugely, criminally underrated car that we haven't mentioned yet, and if you're in the market for one of these, you really should check it out first. It's one of these. But if you were to buy that or this, what would you buy instead? Let us know in the comments. See you next time. Also, the whole best of Japan ideal clearly wasn't lofty enough for Toyota. Well, where you'd normally expect to find a Toyota logo, there's a Crown badge. Just shows you